You are listening to Realign Your Life podcast, where I discuss with you strategies on how to realign your life and move towards the direction you always want to. I am Vivian, the host of this podcast, and every week I will bring value on how to improve and realign your life either through a guest or my thoughts. I can't wait to share what we have this week. It's time to realign your life. Well, welcome back to Realign Your Life podcast. This is Vivian, the host of this show, and I am so excited that you have honored us today with your presence. So today I am so excited to share with you because this is a journey for us, realigning our lives. And as promised, I said that I would share my thoughts with you, but today I have a treat for you listeners out there. I have a really dear friend and someone that I know that you are going to enjoy hearing what she has to share with you on your journey to realigning your lives. And of course, we all have to go through different chapters in our lives. And as we go through those chapters, as we go from one chapter to the next chapter, there is always that transition time. And I'm reminded of when I transitioned into my locks. I had to go through that really, really ugly period. But anyways, now I am just so satisfied and happy. But that was something that I had to go through. So today we have a good friend of mine, Mrs. LaQwiesha Jackson, with us. Hi, LaQwiesha.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for agreeing to be on Realign Your Life podcast with us today and to share with our listeners out there some of your experiences as you have realigned your life and continue to do that. Right?
Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, yes. So LaQwiesha is from Florida. Is it Jacksonville?
Orlando, Florida.
Oh, she's from Disneyland.
Yes.
LaQwiesha is from Orlando, Florida. She is a wife. She's a mother. She's a grandmother. And she's had lots of varying experiences. So LaQwiesha, tell us a little bit about, how you got started there in Orlando, some of your background, some of your educational background, because you have a pretty healthy and a pretty fruitful background here.
Yes, ma'am. So as you stated, I grew up in Orlando, Florida. I have 4 other siblings. 2 of them have passed away and 2 of them are still living. We were all raised by our grandfather. All of his girls ended up being on crack cocaine. And so then he had to take in 13 of his grandkids. So we were raised by our grandfather. And in the 12th grade, I ended up moving out on my own. I had already had Shakori. I had my first child in the 8th grade. And then I went on to college. I graduated high school and then went on to college. I got a bachelor's and a master's degree in social work. Wow. And then I ended up getting married my junior year of college. And my husband and I have a total of 3 children. And as you stated, a grandchild as well.
Right. So, my goodness, you got married in your junior year of college. So how did you guys meet?
At church. And we grew up in the same church. While we grew up in the same church, it was a smaller church, but I didn't know him and he didn't know me because he didn't hang out with the young adult groups. He is 6 years older than me, but he still falls within the young adult group, but he's just very quiet. So he didn't hang out with us. So I didn't know him. When I saw him at church, I actually thought he was a lot older than he was, and that's why he wasn't hanging out with us. So it wasn't until I met him that I realized that. Mm-hmm.
Oh, so this is the one. So you were in college before you guys even started dating.
Yes,
That's
I was already
amazing.
in college. Yes, because
That's
we didn't date long. We went out on our first date in July, and then by that March, we were getting married. That following March, we were getting married. So we didn't date long at all.
and so
Mm-hmm.
how long have you guys been married?
25 years. So we just
Oh my,
celebrated 25 years last month.
wow.
Yes.
That is absolutely amazing. So growing up with 13 others,
Yes, ma'am.
were all of y'all in the same household?
Yes.
Oh
A
wow.
small 3-bedroom. So my
Wow.
grandfather was in one room, the girls was in one room, and then the boys was in another room. And it's more girls than boys. I think it's the first 8 grandkids are girls. So all of us was in one room, and then the boys was in another room. Yes.
That says a lot about your grandfather. What an awesome man he must have been. Or was he one of those that's really tough?
It was his grandkids. I know that he could have allowed us to go to foster care, but back then that just wasn't what they were doing. So he did. He was strict.
Mm-hmm.
When I did get pregnant at 18, when I was 16, he ended up putting me out, and I ended up staying with somebody else from the church. And even my journey of doing hair, that goes back, because I've always done hair. And so once I did have my daughter at 16, I wanted to do hair, and he forced me to go to college, which I'm grateful that I had that experience, because it did come in handy before I started doing hair. And even now, while I'm doing hair, it still comes in handy because I have a social work degree. So in talking and counseling with my clients, my degree comes in handy. But him just pushing me to go the college route because I had a child, as opposed to going the route that I wanted to go, which was doing hair.
Wow. So that must have been pretty challenging, going to college, being responsible for a child, and all of the other things that go along with that, with the studies and all of that. Had to be pretty challenging.
It was, but I've always been an A student, whether I read or not, whether I study or not. So the coursework was not challenging. Just having a child was challenging, because I know there were several times that I even had to take her to class with me. And the professors were understanding if she just happened to be sick, or if the daycare was closed. We would just sit in the back of the auditorium or whatnot, and she was quiet. She was a mild-mannered little kid. And so she would just be back there minding her own business while I was in class. Mm-hmm.
Wow, that is sheer determination. So you know what? That is such an inspiration for so many, probably our listeners out there, and for some young people. So in your work as a social worker, how did you choose social work, and did you work in that field very long?
I chose social work. I initially went into being a school counselor. I wanted to go that route with teenage pregnancy, because again, I was a teenage mom. So when I went to a school that was catered to just moms, but pregnant teenagers and teenage moms. So that's all that went to the school. And once I graduated, I went back there for my internship in college. And so then just wanting to help other kids, because it was a good experience for me, knowing that that was a safe place. I was still able to go to school there, still attend to my child, because in daycare, the nursery was just right down the hallway. You ate lunch with your child. In between classes, you had nursery duty. They taught you parenting skills. And I just wanted to help other young people know that just because you got pregnant at an early age, you didn't have to drop out of school.
It wasn't a death sentence.
Yes.
And I'm so much like you in that case, because I had my son at 19, and I had all these grandiose plans for my life. And then, of course, I had supportive family. So it's so important to have that village. So you did have a village around you, even with the professors allowing you to bring, your baby to class with you, and being able to go back to where you were supported as a young, pregnant mom and a teenage mom. Yes. So that gave you that, it really does take a village.
Yes, it does.
To help you to get there. So how much work did you do in social working? Were you
I graduated in 1999 with my bachelor's, and then 2000 with my master's.
Will you give me some of that brain power?
And then we moved here in 2006. So then I worked from 99 to 2006 once we moved here. And soon after we moved here is when I began homeschooling our children.
So what moved you to start homeschooling? I mean, was that something that you wanted to do, or was that a dream? Or
no, not at all. I enjoyed going to work. I cried when the Lord laid that on my heart. That I'm just being honest. A lot of other homeschool moms, they knew that's what they wanted to do. And my homeschool circle is a lot of Caucasian women. And so then they have been homeschooled from generation to generation. That was not in my experience. Everybody that looked like me that I knew went to school. They sent their kids to school, and I was happy to send my kids to school. So this was not something that I wanted to do or had been thinking about doing. When we moved here, even before we moved here, our son, we have 2 girls and a son. Our son is our youngest one. And just from daycare, he had just been getting put out of the daycares, even at that young age.
Little sweet Jalen, I cannot believe that.
Yes. So then he started, it transitioned to school. The very first week of kindergarten, he got suspended.
Oh, wow. From kindergarten? From kindergarten on up into 3rd when we pulled him out. He had just kept getting suspended, kept getting in trouble. And then it wasn't even, I don't want to say violent stuff, because I understand that if it's one child and there with all those teachers, the teacher can't just be focusing on him. That's my child, and I'm not going to take up for him saying that he wasn't wrong, because he was definitely wrong in these situations. But just he falling out of his chair, he beatboxing on the table, he making noise, he laughing at other kids. He when he walked past them, he hitting them on the head. It was just playful stuff, but not when you have a class full of 20-something kids. Yeah. And that is really being disruptive. So it wasn't, he wasn't being violent, like fighting, cursing, or doing any of that stuff, but it just, all the disruption just continued to allow him to get in trouble, because he went from March to May and he got 126 referrals. Wow. Yes. So when you look at that, and it kind of sounds like, now I'm on this side, it sounds like to me, a child being a child.
Yes.
So there wasn't any really horrific things that he was doing. He was just being a typical child. Now, do you think that because you are a woman of color, do you think that, I don't know, if the teacher was of a different persuasion? And so, because I know that happens often with our young men, that they are labeled.
Yes, that was definitely
that label
the case.
follows them throughout school.
This was definitely a racial case because the school social worker, who was white, told me, she was like, I'm going to tell you this off the record, and if you say it, I'm going to deny it, and then who do you think they're going to believe, you or me? Yeah. She was like, they're trying to railroad Jalen. He is just being a kid, but again, with 20 other kids in there, they wanted to put him in the EC classes, but his academics wouldn't allow them to. And so then they had to build it up based off of referrals or behavior. So then that's why they did the 126 referrals from March to May, so that they can have a case to put him in there. So she the one who mentioned homeschool. And when she first mentioned it to me, I was upset because I'm like, I didn't work once we moved here, just my husband. I'm like, my husband taxes pay for him to go to school. You're not finna have him coming home with me. No, that's your job. That's your job to be teaching him, not mine. And so I had never considered homeschool, hadn't even thought of homeschooling because I didn't know anybody that homeschooled. Again, one that looked like me or period. I just didn't know homeschoolers. And so we went to a meeting one day, and Jalen had gotten into trouble, and it was the area superintendent, the principal, the school social worker, the teacher, all them white, Jalen, myself, and my husband. And the principal is looking through Jalen's file. Oh, Jalen makes straight A's. This isn't the typical behavior of somebody that makes straight A's. And he lives with both of his parents. This is the typical behavior that you would experience somebody being raised by a grandparent. That just ain't sit well with me, because even if that was your feelings, for you to express that out loud. So then I said, well, today will be Jalen's last day. And then I don't know where that came from.
You're like, what have I said?
Exactly. I don't tell the people that this boy ain't coming back no more. And so we pulled him out that day, and he did not go back. And for the first 3 months, we didn't do any work at home. I literally was crying. I'm just like, God, I don't know what I did. I don't want to stay home with I don't want to stay home with these kids. And at that time, we had just pulled our son out, because our daughter was in 10th grade, and then another daughter was in 6th grade. So we didn't pull them out. We had just pulled him out. And so I'm like, I don't want to do this. I want to go to work. I enjoyed social work. I enjoyed talking and counseling people, meeting people. I didn't want to stay home. But I do realize that was God's will for us. And I'm so grateful. We didn't end up pulling out our oldest child because she only had 2 more years. And I've never homeschooled. I didn't know. I wasn't going to pull out no high schooler because I didn't know what I was doing. But we did end up pulling out the middle school child. And we ended up graduating both of them from homeschool.
Wow. That was truly a realignment of your life, right?
Yes.
Because that was a total readjustment. And so were you able to, how were you able to find the material or know what to do with homeschool?
Literally, like I said, I didn't know anybody that homeschooled. And when I end up pulling him out, I was talking to one of the ladies in a prayer group, and she was like, oh, such and such homeschool and such homeschool. And both of them went to the church. And I'm like, no, I didn't know. And they were Black. No, I didn't know that. And so then she connected me with both of them. And
Wow.
both of them, one of them, she has already, she only had 2 kids, and both of her kids have already graduated. The other one, she still have 2 kids in school now. And both of them have always been homeschooled. So they were able to help me out with it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Would you, looking back now, would you recommend homeschooling, or do you recommend homeschooling?
I do now, because I still get calls and texts from people that have found me out on social media or something, because I talk about homeschool quite often. And even like Sydney, my daughter works for Imaginon, and she's had people come in, they're asking about just talking to her, realizing that she was homeschooled, and then asking to speak to me to give them more information. So yes, I do recommend homeschooling.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned Sydney, and Sydney has a master's in library science, right?
Yes, ma'am. So she graduated, whatever year we graduated from homeschool. Then she went to UNCC and got an undergraduate in health communication, and then she went on and got her master's in library science. And she is a librarian, a teen librarian at Imaginon. And then Jalen, after he graduated high school, he went to CPCC, and he has his welding degree. And
so he finally calmed down.
He did. And and to be honest, like I said, that's my child. Even when we were homeschooled, he would be doing the same thing with Sydney. But it's only 2 of them, that was homeschooled with me. And I have been a mom for so long, 16 years. I'm okay with tuning people out. So he would be in our classroom, beatboxing and like messing with Sydney or stuff. I would have to separate him, and then he is a late riser. So then he want to get up at like 10 while we've already been up like 8. But then he won't finish his work until like 10 at night. He's finishing it, but I tell him that I'm off duty. So if you have any questions after 3:00, you're just gonna have to wait till the next day. You're gonna have to wake up early and ask. So he is very independent. And even with him, he was the youngest person to come through the Central Piedmont welding program and earn his welding degree. Wow. And he's the youngest person at his job. He's been there. That was his internship for his welding, and he's been there now 3 years.
Wow. What an amazing story. But, I'm reminded in the Bible, and I think it's in Proverbs, where it says to bring up a child in the way that he should go, and then not depart. And with you sharing with us, children are different. We are all different. We all have different DNA. We are all wired differently. And I may not learn the same way that you learn.
Yes.
And so I can see where homeschooling would kind of tend to lean more toward that, being able to work with that child in the way that he learns best.
Yes.
A lot of our kids may even get left behind because it's not a learning disability, or it's not really a behavior disability, but or behavior issue, but it's just that this child is just wired differently from little Susie over here.
Because that was one of the things they sent us for an evaluation, and it came back that he didn't have ADHD, whatever, all the things. He didn't have that. He didn't need to be put on medicines. And that was just the way that he was acting out, I guess. But he didn't need any medicines, or he wasn't labeled anything after the evaluations. And I think too that this just goes to show him always doing stuff with his hands, and now that's what his job is. He's constantly working with his hands as a welder.
Wow. Well, I'm just so glad that you all were bold enough to be able to take that step and to really listen to to what the Spirit was saying to you. And we've talked about that, being mindful and being in the present and just really hearing that connection from the spirit to the soul that is giving you wisdom to move in the direction that you need to. So now you've got these two at home. You've got them all educated. And so were you doing anything for yourself? What was your self-care like during that time?
Actually, I was a part of a women's Bible study. We met monthly, and I actually ended up being the president. And it's so funny, ironic, I guess. I was the youngest, and I was the only Black. So I was surrounded around all these white older people, and I'm their leader, their president. I was the president for like 2 years. And I looked online and came across that Charlotte on the Cheap have stuff. And so then Charlotte on the Cheap lists events that's happening in Charlotte that are either free or cheap. And one of the women's brunch had came up. And so I went to it, and it was actually a Christian, it's called Stonecroft, but it's actually a Christian Bible study. But they didn't book it as that. It was just like a women's brunch or whatever. Well, you didn't realize that it was religious until you got there, which was fine with me because I am a person of faith. But I went there with them, and once a month I would go there. And even like the kids, it was in like North Charlotte. And so then while I was at the brunch, I would take them to the North Charlotte library and let them just stay at the library while I was at the brunch.
Wow. How amazing. You know what? We can always find ways to readjust and realign when it's totally necessary, right?
Yeah.
And I love the idea that you were self-caring, that you were taking care of what you needed for you. And in the meantime, here you are still, you've got your husband here. And so that was a big chunk of income when you had to leave your job. So how did you guys end up managing? Because I know that's a big question out there. Everybody's going to want to know. How in the world did you end up managing? Because nowadays it takes two income household plus most of the time you working part-time too. So how did you guys manage?
That really was a realignment coming from the two incomes to one. And once we moved here, not only did we lose not one income, his income went down. So it wasn't even like we lost two and his went up, it went down. So that truly was a period of trusting the Lord. But I met some great women on Facebook through another Bible study. And one of the ladies in the Bible study was an extreme couponer. And And so I went through that period too, where I was an extreme couponer. I had a stockpile and everything. And that was just how we end up making it. I was a secret shopper. I had saw that on Good Morning America one day. And so I reached out to the company so then we would be able to get meals because I would do the secret shopping. So we'd go out to dinner that way. They did oil changes. So I would do that, like staying at different places. We would do that. So the Lord allowed other areas to come in that were compensating for that one income. And then I became an extreme saver, just learning how to live off one income. Because during that time as well, I was introduced to Dave Ramsey. And so even with the one income that was less, I still was able to pinch money aside here and there and then pay down debt. And we didn't have a lot of debt because we've never been like credit card people. But we did have like car payments. We had our mortgage. We did have one credit card. But then just learning how to live off less. And even now, both of my kids, all three of them, and I keep mentioning just the two, but I have three kids. But the two that are still home are really good savers. And last year for Mother's Day, one of them had given me a card that was saying that if you wanted to, you can save $1 million off of a $25,000 salary. And I just passed that on to them. Just learning how to save and just live off less, learning how to just budget. And it's not that we're depriving ourselves of anything, because even during that time, we're from Florida, so we were still able to go home. We have a cousin in Maryland. We were still able to go there. So just learning how to budget with the amount that you have, whether it's a little or a lot, just learning how to budget.
Wow, that's awesome. That is really wonderful. I know that you are going to have people that are going to be reaching out to you to say,
yes.
Come on, you got to teach us. You got to share some of those techniques. That is really wonderful, because I know you guys, you share with me that, hey, we're going to my goal is to get my house paid off within the next couple of years. Yes. And I'm sure that's going to happen. Yes. So now once you got these kids, you got them all graduated out now. Woo-hoo. Yes. Hallelujah.
Yes.
So now, what do you do with yourself? So I know that y'all see y'all can't see it, but my beautiful hair. And I keep getting compliments on this style. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. And even Cindy said, I want my hair like Miss Vivian. I said, oh, okay.
Well, that's okay, because I've copied off of her too. So once, how did you end up leaving social working, which you still use some of that skill set in what you're doing now?
Mm-hmm. In 2016, our last son was approaching graduation. And like I said, we moved here in 2006. So I hadn't been working or anything. Well, I was doing like little odds and ends, like I said, the secret shopping and stuff, but an actual full-time job. I hadn't been working. And so then when it was almost time for him to graduate, I'm like, okay, Lord, what is it that I'm supposed to be doing right now? I knew I am constantly cold. And even when we were moving here, when I was telling my family from Florida that we were moving here, they did not believe me until the moving truck came, because it was like, you're not going up there in that cold. You're not. And so then up until that time, since I'm homeschooling and not working a real job, I can go out or stay in as I please. But being that it was getting ready for him to graduate, I need to be doing something. And so I was asking the Lord, what should I do? And I had went to my stylist, and we were just talking. I didn't have social media at the time. And so she had said that she had saw somebody's hair that I braided. I had 6 little girls' hair that I braided on a consistent basis. And she knew one of the aunts. And so she had asked me about, did I ever consider doing hair? And I'm like, no, because, I'll tell her this too. My salon experiences have always just been, y'all late, y'all overbooked, y'all be eating, y'all just be talking, just doing stuff that I don't like. So then I'm like, I don't want to do this. No. And literally for like 3 months straight, she just kept asking me. And so then CPCC in 2015, I think 2015 had came out with a law saying that all natural hair clients, not all natural hair stylists had to be licensed. And so that was 2016 they came out, because 2017 they started a program, North Carolina, where you had to get your license. So CPCC had just come out with the natural hair program, and I went to her one in July, and she was telling me about it. And I was like, I don't want to do that. And so she sent me the application. She was like, I don't care, just fill it out. And I did. They had scholarships. And so then I filled out the scholarship that was for 17 to 24-year-olds. And I'm like, I don't qualify for that. And they called me. They were like, well, you don't qualify for this one, but we do have one for adults, and no one has applied for it.
Wow.
So then if this is what you want to do, we can just apply your application to that one. And so then, and they were like, the only downfall is it starts a month later. I'm like, okay, because I don't have no plans for August or September. So I started in September of 2016. And then I graduated January 2017. And so with the scholarship from them. And then I started working in the salon in April. So it literally was a full year from the time she had mentioned it to me working in a salon. And so she encouraged me to apply for the program. I received a scholarship. And then my job, she was like, she had just saw another stylist had put out on social media that they were looking for a braider, and she had given them my information. And I'm like, I ain't never worked in no salon. I can't do this. And she was like, I don't care. They just need somebody that's going to braid hair. And you know how to braid. And they called me in March, and I started working with them in April.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And now you have your own salon.
Yes. 5 years later, I have my own salon. Mm-hmm.
So how does it feel being a small business owner?
It's work. Mm-hmm. I am so grateful, though, because there was nothing that I would have stepped out on my own to do. It is another realignment that I'm so grateful for. And I really have been. Back up a little. The salon that I was working in ended up closing a year after I started. The two owners decided to go in a different direction. But that year that I was there, I had been doing their clients' hair because I didn't have a clientele. So when they closed in 2018, literally 90% of the clients followed me over. So even 5 years later, I would say about 80% of those clients are still with me. So I am constantly booked, and I'm grateful for that. So I really haven't had a challenge as far as not having a clientele, but it's still challenging running a business behind the scenes because I need to be financially secure in this area, making sure I'm doing this in that area, taxes and products and all of that. So then that kind of have been the challenging portion for me.
So do you because you don't have a partner?
No, ma'am. Mm-hmm.
And does any of your children participate in the business at all?
No. My oldest daughter, she does do hair. But she does it on leisure, and she does it when she wants to, how she wants to. So she was like, no, this isn't for her. My oldest daughter, she graduated from Elizabeth City State University, and she has a degree in accounting. So she works for a mortgage firm.
So does she do your accounting?
No.
You do?
I have somebody.
Okay.
I have somebody outside. Not that she don't know what she's doing. I don't know if she knows what she's doing or not, but I have somebody I had a business coach the first 2 years, and then the
Okay.
business coach referred a small business, an accountant that handles a lot of small business owners. So then that's who does the booking.
But that's wonderful to hear that too. So I know that there's probably somebody out there that's listening that may be interested in starting their own business, and everybody wants to do that. But to hear you say that you had a business coach, that's wonderful. So how were you moved, or what motivated you to know that you needed a business coach, or how did that business coach support you?
Again, I am a believer, and everything that I do is surrounded around my faith in the Lord. So I was on a prayer call. I was in a prayer group, and one of the leaders in the prayer group, that was her coaching. She has a business coaching business. Mm-hmm. And so, and aside, I think we had put out what we did on one of the emails or something. And so then she was offering specials for anybody that signed up. So then I end up going through her, and I still go through her now. Yes.
Okay. And you worked with her for 2 years?
Yes. Mm-hmm. I worked with her for 2 years. Yes. And now off and on, I'll reach out to her and ask her questions or whatnot. I literally just went to a brunch Saturday, and she was the host of the brunch. So I still keep in contact with her.
Wow. I mean, what a tremendous story you have. Mm-hmm. And, and just like, I was saying earlier, our lives, or we live our lives in chapters, yes, or seasons. And each season, just like, when you're reading a good book, the one chapter transitions to another chapter.
Yes.
Or in seasons, one season, and you can really see that here in North Carolina, one season transitions to another season. So we're always constantly changing. And that's what's so beautiful about this life that, God has granted us and blessed us with, that it is never a dull moment. It's always something exciting going on.
Exactly.
And I really do applaud you. A teen mom, a teenage mom that have a 25-year marriage and 3 wonderful young adult children that all have education. So it seems that education is very important to you.
It is, because like I said, even with me being a teen mom, I have always excelled in school. Now, outside of Jalen, I was a troublemaker at school. I was fighting. I was getting suspended from the 3rd grade on, whereas he don't start getting suspended from the 1st grade. So I told my husband that's just me. It came from me. I can't even deny that.
He's a chip off the old block, huh?
Yes, I can't even deny it. But I have always, even if you come into our house now, we have books all over. During this summers, I would have the children reading books and doing math quizzes, and depending on how many book reports they turned in, they got rewarded for that. They would always be at the library. Like I said, even when I'm an extreme couponing out at the grocery stores, they would be at the library. We would just do a variety of library programs. So yes, education has always been important to me, because I knew at first I felt like I had to prove something, being that I was in 8th grade with the baby and everybody else had written me off. I had to prove that no, I still can be an asset to the world. And so then I went hard for education, and I did just pass that on down to them. And I know Sydney, even when she talked about why she wanted to be a librarian, it was because she spent so much time in the library and just had a real mentor. One of the librarians was a real mentor to her.
Wow. That is so beautiful. So I just want everybody out there to know that, life goes in cycles. And just because you make a mistake, or what people would call a mistake, because I don't think any life is a mistake with God.
Yes.
So we can keep moving on. It doesn't have to be the end all.
Yes.
It doesn't have to. And I hear you, you talk about your education, but your faith is very, very important to you. So where did that come from? I understand you said that you guys grew up in a small church. So where did your faith, how did that develop for you?
The Lord has always been speaking to me. He has always been present in my life. And I can remember like 7, 8, just asking the Lord. Because like I said, my mom was on drugs. Her 2 sisters was on drugs. And so even when we lived with my mom, I just knew that I didn't want that life. Mm-hmm. And so we would go to church with my grandfather. He would come pick us up and take us to church until we actually end up moving with him. And then we would always go to church. But just me always going before God, just seeking him, asking him to just give me direction. And I mentioned this to my kids too, because I'm very open with them, especially being that I went back into the internship to be a social worker at the pregnancy center. One of the girls that came through was 9. She was pregnant at 9, and her boyfriend she was pregnant at 10, and her boyfriend was 12. And my daughter was 9 at the time. So then I sat her down and was talking to her about it. And I said that even though that I had you at an early age, I've always loved the Lord, always wanted to do everything that pleases the Lord. I had you because I wanted somebody to love me. Mm-hmm. And so that I am here for you and I love you. So I don't want you to go out and feel like you need love outside, because I didn't get that. And my mindset has always just been to please the Lord. I can't say where exactly it came from except from him, but I don't know.
Mm-hmm. He woos us.
Yes.
He draws us to him.
Yes.
That's beautiful. Because
I can remember being like 16, 15, 16, being in the church business meetings. No other little children weren't there. They home or whatever. I just wanted to be there to just hear and know about the Lord. And I remember in the business meetings back then, they used to pass out the giving statements, and I would be the only child on there that had like giving like $300 for tithes and offering or whatever,
Wow. Mm-hmm. So you've always had that saving and that knowing how money works, or making money work for you mentality. It's always been there. Goes way back. Wow. Mm-hmm. That's just so beautiful. I just thank you so much for sharing with us. And I know you have really blessed somebody out there listening to this podcast today. So would you just share with us 3 things that you would really love to leave this listening audience with?
Yes. Build that relationship with the Lord. Build your relationship with the Lord, however that looks for you. The Lord says what concerns us concerns him. So whatever concerning you, and that concern doesn't have to be a bad thing. Concerns can be good or bad, but whatever concerns you, leave that at the foot of the Lord, and he will direct you, because he knew that even in this season where my husband isn't making a lot, the business is thriving. and it's not my income, his income. We 25 years in, so this is our income. So if I'm making more than him right now, it doesn't matter. It's our household income. And the Lord knew that. So he knew how to orchestrate this, but I had to be willing to be open and help him. And then fellowship. Surround yourself around other like-minded people. Like I said, during the transition of me homeschooling, I went to a Bible study that ended up propelling me with the saving, with the challenging me to just develop my relationship with the Lord, just speaking life into me. These were, like I said, older, white, wealthier women. So they were able to teach me down that path of wealth or whatnot. So then, and then with the marriage, we're, like I said, 25 years in. So we surround ourselves with a lot of other married couples. We have a marriage homeschool. We facilitate home Bible studies, my husband and I. So then just surrounding yourself with like-minded people. And then just love who you are. Love who you are. And just be unapologetically confident in who you are and who the Lord has allowed you to be.
Wow. Wow. I think girl, you have just really summed this up, that what the word says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, and your mind, and love others as you love yourself. So you have pointed that out in all three aspects of what you shared right here with us today.
Yeah.
And she didn't mention this, guys, but this is an entrepreneur. You and your husband also run a what?
Marriage ministry.
A marriage ministry, and on the business end, and
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Our Airbnb. Yes.
And that's going very well for you too, right?
It is. It really is. We've had a long-term guest. She just extended until September. So that'll be 11 months she has been here with us.
Wow. Yeah. That is so wonderful. You have shared so many wonderful nuggets with us today. And I am just so excited about it. And I am just so grateful and thankful to God for bringing you into my life. And I actually met you in a marriage class, and I'm single. We have bonded and just stayed in touch with each other. And I just love your whole family. And I know that people out there want to know how to get in touch with you. They're going to want to know. So how can they reach you?
I am on Instagram at Miss LaQwiesha. That's MRS period LaQwiesha, LaQwiesha. And then in Facebook, LaQwiesha Jackson. And both of those, my Facebook is more personal, but then the Miss LaQwiesha is more my business page for my braiding. But I also list, because that's the total person, but I also list about marriage, because like you stated, marriage is really important to me and my husband.
Yes. And can you tell us where, are you taking new customers for your braiding?
I am. I specialize in children. However, I am booked because I don't have any evening or weekend slots right now to take on any new children. So I do a lot of flat twists. I do locks. Both of us have locks. So I do locks. I braid. I'm just starting to offer a new service where I'm doing the micro locks. And so, yes, I am still taking on new clients.
And where's your shop located? The name and your location of your shop?
My shop is Braiding with a Twist, Natural Boutique, and I am inside of Lucky You Salon and Suites, and that's at 9605 North Tryon Street.
Okay.
Charlotte, North Carolina.
Share that with them one more time. The location.
It's inside of Lucky You Salon and Suites, and it's at 9605 North Tryon Street in Charlotte.
So again, thank you so much for being with us today, LaQwiesha. I am just so excited about all of the things that are happening in your life and how you have just embraced that realignment. And just knowing that when you trust God, that He would definitely direct your path.
Yes.
Even sometimes when we don't even know what path that we're going down. But you've done so much, you've done so many things, and the chapters continue to unfold in your life. So again, thanks so much. And for those of you out there listening, make sure that you check her out on her Instagram page or Facebook, or drop by the shop and see if you can get squeezed in there. Don't take my slot, okay?
Yes.
Well, again, thank you so much. And thank you guys for listening in. And I'll look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.
Thank you so much, too. You have a good evening.
All right.
Okay.
Peace.
Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. The best gift that you could give me is to share this podcast with family and friends. And don't forget to review it. That way, this podcast will grow organically. If you need to reach out to me, please check out my Facebook page, DM me there, or you can email me at godskow@gmail.com. We have upcoming Bible studies that we would love for you to join us in, or if there is a guest or someone that you would like to see me interview on this podcast, please let me know. We are here to work together to realign our lives. Until the next episode, take care, and I look forward to sharing more and more with you as we realign our lives. Peace until next week.